Please subscribe to the channel and stay with me. This story only reveals its true meaning if you listen until the very end. The wine struck my shirt like a slap. Deep red, costly Bordeaux, spreading across the white linen as the laughter around the long New Year's dinner table died in an instant. For a brief moment, nobody moved. The chandelier above us hummed quietly, its crystals trembling as though they were embarrassed too. My wife's father slowly lowered his glass and looked directly at me. "You will never be one of us," Henri Laurent said, "no matter how hard you try to pretend." Beyond the tall windows, Paris lit up with distant fireworks, bright colors bursting across the winter sky. Inside the Laurent apartment, surrounded by old wealth and inherited pride, time seemed to stop. My stained shirt didn't bother me nearly as much as the silence. My wife Claire softly whispered my name, not to defend me, but to warn me. I gently dabbed my shirt with a napkin and smiled. "It's only wine," I said. "Happy New Year." That was the moment every one of them misunderstood me. My name is Antoine Morel. I grew up in Saint-Étienne, in a concrete apartment block built for factory workers who believed loyalty mattered more than dignity. My grandfather died beneath the ground in a mining accident that was quietly blamed on him. My father learned early that anger only made a man replaceable, so he taught me the value of patience instead. Claire and I had been married for 6 years. To the Laurents, I was always an inconvenience, the educated son of nobody who somehow married their only daughter. They accepted me only because I was useful. I worked in corporate risk analysis. I understood systems, leverage, and the quiet pressure that moved powerful people. Henri mistook that for weakness. He admired loud authority, inherited influence, the kind that believed it could never be challenged. The dinner continued with forced smiles and awkward conversation. Claire's mother avoided looking at me. Her brother Julien smirked as if my humiliation were the evening's entertainment. Henri kept drinking, sitting proudly like the unquestioned king of his table. When midnight arrived, everyone raised their glasses. "To family," I said. Henri gave a mocking laugh. "Some of us are born into it." I said nothing. That night, Claire cried in our bedroom, apologizing for her father without ever admitting he had been wrong. "You know how he is," she whispered. "He doesn't mean it." "I know exactly what he means," I answered quietly. She eventually fell asleep. I didn't. I stood by the window, watching fireworks scatter across the Paris skyline like promises that would disappear before morning. Then I picked up my phone and made a single call, not to a lawyer, not to a friend, to an old contact who owed me a favor. The Laurents had built their fortune through logistics, shipping contracts, port access, and cross-border supply chains that appeared spotless on the surface. Henri loved talking about the empire he had created. What he never understood was how fragile an empire becomes when its greatest asset is its reputation. Over the following weeks, I did nothing anyone could see. I attended family lunches. I smiled. I nodded. I started wearing darker shirts. Quietly, however, I began pulling at loose threads. Risk assessments were requested. Audits were opened. Business partnerships were reviewed. One anonymous inquiry reached exactly the right regulatory office at exactly the right time. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, only attention. Henri became increasingly frustrated. Delays irritated him. Julien blamed middle management. Claire noticed how calm I remained and mistook it for forgiveness. Spring arrived cold and soaked with rain. Paris smelled of wet stone and damp streets. One morning, Henri called me. "You work with numbers," he said sharply. "You hear things. What's going on?" I paused just long enough. "Markets change," I replied. "Sometimes respect changes too." He hung up immediately. The investigation grew deeper. A foreign business partner walked away. A bank froze important credit lines while waiting for clarification. The Laurents had built everything on confidence. Confidence disappears much faster than money. At Sunday dinner, Henri looked smaller than before. Julien had become defensive. Beneath the table, Claire gently squeezed my hand, sensing something had changed even if she couldn't yet understand what it was. Later she asked me, "Did you do something?" "Yes," I answered. "I stopped protecting them." The moral cost cut deeper than I had expected. Claire had been shaped by that family. Their cruelty had become part of her, the way years of neglect quietly shape bone. I wasn't only bringing Henri down, I was forcing her to choose. The turning point came in July during a board meeting I was never expected to attend. Henri stood with a red face, shouting at men who no longer feared him. Documents filled the screen behind him, irregularities, growing risks, and unanswered questions. He demanded loyalty. He received silence. Then someone asked who had initiated the review. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. I remained seated. I didn't smile. "I did," I said, "because respect matters, and I grew tired of pretending it didn't." Henri stared at me, finally understanding everything. "You did all this because of a glass of wine." "No," I answered. "I did this because you believed you could throw it." The company survived, but it emerged smaller, stripped down, and managed by people who understood accountability. Henri was forced into retirement. Julien left Paris. The Laurent name remained, but its strength had faded. A month later, Claire moved out, not with anger, with the silence. "I love you," she said, "but I don't know who I am without them." I nodded. Neither did I. Until now. The following New Year's Eve, I stood alone on the bridge, watching fireworks bloom over the Seine. The cold stung my hands while the city roared with celebration. Revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it felt inevitable. And for the first time in my life, I raised my glass, not to family, not to power, but to myself.